Nailing your niche isn't an easy task, and I can relate. In this episode, I'm going to cover 3 key aspects that have helped me to focus in on my niche. We're going to first look at why you need a niche and then evaluate shifting past imposter syndrome so you can teach what you desire even when you're just getting started. Finally, if you're feeling stuck, we will be exploring a strategy for finding your niche. Hi, I'm Adrienne Jarrett, a website designer, certified yin and vinyasa teacher, and lifelong student of yoga. Welcome to the All Mats Taken podcast, where we will have conversations to help yoga teachers grow profitable businesses and deepen their practice so that they can make a greater impact in the world and have fun doing it along the way. So I wanted to cover this topic because I've got quite a few episodes coming up with guests, and finding your niche is quite important in the early stages of your journey, and then we do cover that as well in those episodes. So definitely come back and check those out. Also, it's something that people keep bringing up to me within the community. I want to premise this episode by saying that my history with niching down in my businesses has been tumultuous, to say the least. I am terribly indecisive when it comes to my business focus because I have so many interests. Literally the other day, I was looking at a website mock-up project that I did for a herbalist and thought, let's follow that thread. And I had to pull myself back and say, no, not yet. I need to establish the things and the goals that I am working on right now, especially within All Mats Taken. I just have so many different interests, and that's where I've really struggled. So I'm not pretending to be an expert by any means as to how to pick a niche and what your niche should be, but I thought it might be helpful for some people if I share my own personal experience in my business and some sort of ideas on how you can pick your niche too, because I have got to a place where I'm pretty confident in it, and we will explore that with imposter syndrome because it does come up for me a lot as well, and how you overcome that. This episode is my personal experience and thoughts. I'm not an expert on picking a niche and niching. So when we're thinking about having so many different interests, this kind of leads into the first question is, do you need a niche? And I want to cover why your niche is going to help you in terms of creating content, knowing what to discuss. And this is something that I've felt really difficult and has actually held me back a lot. And it has helped me once I did decide. And it also helps people connect with you and find you. So I'm looking at this from the perspective of multiple different businesses that I have run in the past, not necessarily just in the yoga teacher sector. And one thing that I found, not picking a niche and then running with it has really held me back in some of these businesses. And it wasn't until I really decided to leap into a niche, which in this case for All Mats Taken has been helping yoga teachers, that I actually started to get some momentum. I decided to dive into this niche feeling really unclear about it and unsure, and I didn't know exactly where it was going to lead me, and there was a lot of imposter syndrome around that, and I'm going to get into that. I feel like now that I have picked a very specific niche, that I am heading in the right direction, and it does really help me when I'm thinking about what type of content I can create to do that, and also knowing what I can discuss. So this might sound a little bit counterintuitive, but one benefit is that by narrowing my focus, I've actually managed to expand my ideas for what this business could look like. Adding the constraints on myself actually aids with the creativity because now I have a brief to follow effectively. So I've come from graphic design, website design background, and as fun as it can be, if a client comes to you and they're like, I trust you, do whatever you want, it actually makes it harder than if they have some kind of ideas. And if they come to you with that perspective, one of the first things you've really got to nail with them is what it should look like from the perspective of their branding, who they're talking to, because all of those answers are going to determine what the design is going to look like. Because if you don't know who you're talking to, why you're talking to them, all of that kind of thing, you don't know what to create. By narrowing my focus and actually creating this brief for myself around what type of content I create has enabled me to expand in terms of how can I create this. And I've heard of this in the blogging sphere where you discuss like picking a really niche topic for your blog, and people will often be like, well, if I get too niche, like there's only so much I can talk about. But once you start to really hone in on a specific idea, you find that there's so much more to that world than what you think. And it actually forces you to get creative and find new avenues of how you can talk about that topic. It also kind of sets you up as an expert in that, because even if you're talking about the same thing over and over again, you're starting to learn more about it, and then you're starting to get more knowledge around that area, and you kind of become a go-to person. So I think, yes, you do need a niche, especially when you're starting out, just in terms of helping you find a focus and also helping people who share that interest and that focus find you as well through your content. It enables you to find some common ground with people and connect with people so that they can much more easily connect with you and connect with your business. And if you think about it from like even just a basic SEO perspective. So if you are typing something in, you're looking for someone and you're like yoga, and you're like, I need yoga for moms to de-stress. Maybe that's a term that you're searching, and it's going to be easier if you're more focused on that, or yoga for entrepreneurs, or yoga for potters because my hands have been cramping. You know, like there's all kinds of things. It's going to make people connect with you if they find your content and they're like, oh my gosh, that's everything that I have ever needed to know, and even more that I ever needed to know. There's actually someone that's doing this and talking to me, and so it gives that level of connection. Let's explore imposter syndrome. So for me, I think one of the things that held me back mostly from selecting a niche in any of my businesses I looked at was imposter syndrome. Who am I to teach business to yoga teachers? I do not have a multiple six-figure yoga business at this stage in my life, and I, in all honesty, need to find more time to teach as a yoga teacher myself. So imposter syndrome is something I still routinely face, and potentially even more since I just decided to dive headfirst and pick this niche a few years ago. And as a matter of fact, the way I've kind of come around to it and becoming more accepting of it, and I think this would apply to any niche that I picked, is that I'm not coming to you claiming to be or positioning myself as an expert who has built the six-figure business, because I haven't. I'm coming to you from the position of being someone who's finished their teacher training and I felt lost as what to do next, even as someone who has a long-term interest in business. So within my solo content, I share what I have learned about business, marketing, branding, website design, because that's my thing. I've been learning about it for years. I find it fascinating, and that's where I can personally help you most. I approach these from the perspective of a yoga teacher because I'm passionate about the practice. I deeply believe that the more people who practice yoga in the grander scheme of the practice rather than just asana, that our world will be a better place. I don't pretend, or at least I hope my content doesn't come out from the pretense of me being a top-notch expert in business, or even yoga for that matter. I share what I know, and I share it within this scope because these are the things that I am passionate about. Now, I'm also very aware that within all of these areas, there are places where I feel that I am lacking knowledge, or I simply want a different perspective, because I do believe there is no one right way to do anything, especially in business. And this is where I reach out to guests and I ask them to come and share with our community. Ultimately, you as part of the audience and me as the creator, we are learning alongside each other. That's the niche I see for within myself and within All Mats Taken. I'm a content facilitator with the focus of helping yoga teachers grow their businesses and practices to create a greater impact within the world and within their communities. I think that often when niching is discussed, it can be rather daunting because it's discussed from the perspective of what are you an expert on? And especially as we are very humble people, labeling ourselves as an expert can feel quite icky. But something I heard from a mentor many years ago when I was blogging is that you don't need to be an expert to teach someone else. You just need to be 1 or 2 steps ahead. I think that's the best position to be in because you can relate to someone more closely if you remember what it was like to be in their place, 2 steps behind, for example, where you are now, more so than being an expert who is 10 steps in front of people, so they're more likely to be able to relate to you. And I think as well, from the perspective of like a student or a client, it can kind of be a little bit intimidating sometimes to ask someone who is an expert, like genius level expert, who's 10 steps ahead to a question, because you might feel like it's a basic stupid question. But if you as an expert is only just a few steps ahead, it's much easier for you to relate to where they are now, and they can feel that, and then it can be a little bit easier as well for them to actually reach out and ask you something. So it's just like a closer connection. So you don't have to be a world expert to actually teach someone something. You just have to be slightly ahead of where they are in their current journey. And I think when we take this approach by selecting an area we're passionate about and deciding to take people along a journey with us, it just feels more authentic. It helps combat that imposter syndrome because you're not trying to be something that you're not. You're taking people on the ride with you and you're sharing from the heart. By taking this perspective, if someone also does ask you something that you don't know the answer to, you can openly say, I don't know, but let's find out. Or that's a great question. Let me do some research and I'll circle back to you. Or maybe you can just genuinely refer them to someone else that you know that would have the answer. From this perspective, it's the same as if you think a student came to you in class and asked you about some pain they were experiencing. And unless you're a yoga teacher that has like a certified doctor or a physiotherapist or something like that as well, you're not going to try and diagnose that pain. Depending on what they've come to you with, you could offer postures or adjustments to sort of ease that ache where appropriate, but you'd also probably want to refer them to see some kind of specialist and explain to them that you are not a medical professional. So it's about staying in your lane and knowing where you can help, and then you're not putting anyone along a wrong path or in jeopardy by trying to pretend that you're something that you're not. If you're still really stuck on like, what on earth is my niche? How can we look at this from the perspective of finding your niche as a yoga teacher, looking at a formula, taking a logical approach to this, especially if we are multi-passionate entrepreneurs? I have a few steps here for you. Hopefully this tries to sort of align you and get you sort of thinking and pick that sort of focus that you can just go with and start to actually grow your business from there. First, write down all of your passions and skills, and it is up to you how broad you want to go. You might already have a kind of idea, but you could put everything down in your whole life, or you could just go within your yoga practice. Next, if it didn't come up within the first step, write who it is that you're passionate about helping. And you can write as many types of people that you like. These can quite likely, within this sort of niche that we're talking about, they're going to be various past versions of yourself. You have been through something as a yoga teacher that has driven you towards this career path. You're wanting to help people. You're wanting to share with people. What does your journey look like, and why have you come along this niche? This is where you get quite personal with it, and explain why you want to help them. So for this, it might be helpful for you to write down your own story for yourself and just what your yoga journey has looked like and what drew you into the practice to start with and what also drew you into teaching. Where did that come from? And you might just in that alone have your answer of who you're trying to help right there. Next, you want to know who it is you're trying to help and explain how you can help them. What are they going to get? This is where service comes in. So it's not just what you can do, it's the results that they will get. Using all this information, create an avatar of the different types of people you can help. You might by now have one kind of person. You might have a lot of different avatars depending on your experiences and your passion and your skills. For example, maybe if you go back to your childhood and you're wanting to teach children's yoga, but because of something that you would have found valuable as a child, but you're also wanting to teach entrepreneurs that are stressed out. So write all of those different avatars depending on your experience, passions, and skills. Be creative, be unique, and write how you're serving them. What ultimately are they going to get out of it? What is the transformation that they'll receive? It can help to think of all the different versions of yourself in this. We are obviously very multifaceted human beings, and then which facets of yourself can then you connect with and help serve. And you can write it in your own sense, or you can write it as it's like, this is Annie, this is James, or whatever it might be, and have as many as you want. While you're writing these though, write them as if they're one single person you're writing about. For the final selection process, I'm going to give you 2 options to explore, and then it's up to you in terms of how you work best. So you have all these different avatars and people that you can help. You could look at this from a very businessy perspective and explore which one has a better viable market, we would say. And if you like this sort of logical approach, then you're going to be searching keywords online and looking at what the competition is like for that niche. How saturated is it? Is it undersaturated? Is there an opportunity? Is there actually the people out there that you can connect with on this? And are people searching for it as well? So you'd look at Google search, Google Analytics, all kinds of things. You could search it in Instagram and see what comes up. So you're taking a very sort of business logical, is this a viable option? One thing I'll note in here is if you're looking at a very saturated market, can you be more specific in your niche? For example, mom yoga versus yoga for busy entrepreneurial moms. Mom yoga is going to be pretty competitive. You want to actually be able to get into that market and have a chance of getting in front of these people. So you might want to then further narrow down your niche, and you probably can't narrow down too much. I think we have billions of people on the planet. I don't think you necessarily have to do all of this. So this second approach is going to be very intuitive. You could do a blend of the two if you wanted. But I think as yoga teachers, we tend to be very good at tapping into this intuitive side. And I believe if you're basing your niche on personal experiences, you will find other people that will connect with that. As I mentioned, we are working in an online space and we have the potential to connect with billions of other people. Realistically, how many of those people do you need to find that you have a connection with to make your business successful? And as I mentioned, you're better off being more specific, even though it might seem counterintuitive. Because if you're thinking, oh, but mom yoga, for example, more people are going to relate to that than yoga for busy entrepreneurial moms. Still pretty big niche there. You can probably narrow that even down even further. Yoga for busy graphic designer moms or something, you know what I mean? Because when you're being more specific, you're actually targeting people and speaking closer to someone's heart. And then you're actually just making that closer connection to you, rather than if you're just trying to talk to everyone. So when they find your content, when they're reading the thing, they're like, oh my gosh, this is exactly me. Like, I need this. And that is where niching serves us as well. It's finding those intimate connections with people. You want to tune into yourself, pick one of these avatars, however you're picking it, whether it's very logically or this very intuitive approach, but pick one of them and then roll with it. So that gives you that focus and you can then start to see the benefits from that angle. Now you can always expand later, but as we discussed earlier, when you're starting out, picking that one very specific niche, it's going to help you stay focused, it's going to help you connect with people, and it's going to help you a lot while you're growing your business at the start. And then you can always expand or switch later if it suits you. These are always options. I'd love to hear your feedback on this episode. Did this help? Are you still stuck at picking your niche? Is there a decision that's holding you back? Please feel free to send me a DM on Instagram, or if you'd like, you can email me and we can have a discussion on any of this. I would really love to get your feedback, and I can give feedback on niche ideas, and I'd just love to chat about it because I think it's something that can be quite tricky and we can feel really lost about it, and having these conversations can just really help narrow it down and feel more confident about it. So I'd love to chat with you. Thank you for listening to the All Matt's Taken podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit follow, like, subscribe on your podcast platform of choice, leave us a review and share with a teacher friend. This really helps others find the show so we can continue growing our yoga-loving tribe. I am endlessly grateful for all your support. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next time.